need to buy yourself a gun.
What?
A gun.
What?
Like a handgun for personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you.
What?
What if your government tries to throw you in a can?
What?
You're gonna want a shotgun.
Oh.
What? An automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo.
Gun?
Yeah, a gun.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like a Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Check for the cops in riot gear. Gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension fund. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta drag them through the streets.
It is Tuesday. We are live. This is PrimerTime on UCY.tv. My name is Michael.
I'm Nicholas, and it's another wonderful Tuesday edition of PrimerTime.
Nick, I'm glad to see that you survived the 4th of July.
Yes.
The birth of our independence from the Confederate flag. I'm glad to see you survive that ISIS-free.
Well, not only that, but you'll be happy to know that apparently the Skittles company has taken the wood to the Confederate flag, and apparently we live in a rainbow nation now.
I believe that was true. Now, let's kind of get into a topic that addresses this and stays on the issue of firearms. You, in our previous chat, you had kind of said you were going to ambush me with something, so hit me with it.
Oh well, it's not an ambush if you're expecting it, but I'll go ahead and give it my all. I've got a theorem, and one would say that a theorem is actually proven, so could be a theory, but I think this will hold true. What would you say if I told you that the Supreme Court's recent decision to go ahead and validate gay marriage across the United States is a win for the concealed carry movement in the United States?
I personally would have a hard time finding the link, other than the freedom aspect of it. But other than that, I'd have a hard time finding a link, and I don't even think the freedom aspect would apply to that, other than it's like a God-given right to be married and to carry a gun.
Okay, so let me prepare to dazzle you, because you're not even close, but I got you. So
you know what? I'm almost proud for not being even close on that one, which means I spent no time thinking about it.
there you go. There you go. So what you have is you have the recent Supreme Court decision that basically states that due to the number of states, a majority of states in our union that recognize homosexual marriage, that it is not a God-given right, but that it is a right that must be extended all the way across the land. So therefore, using the same logic, and I believe that they do this under it's one of the clauses that they like to bring up, you would actually see that concealed carry permits are issued by a majority of our states, correct?
I would say, I think we're at, 39 or 38?
Well, and in my Southern California public education, 39 is a majority out of 50, correct?
I would say that would be true. I've seen that on the YouTube.
Yep. So using that same logic, therefore, with concealed carry being used in a majority of the states, the court would naturally not go against its own decision and say that they wouldn't extend that same protection to those who own and obtain concealed carry permits.
So are you saying that there's some sort of precedence being set with the majority accepting this as rights being accepted by the majority, therefore they have to be accepted by everybody?
That's exactly that's exactly what your Supreme Court said that you will, as a state, do, regardless of your individual state's mandate from its people or the legislatures thereof in terms of homosexual marriage. So the way I see it is, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And this is where constitutional lawyers get involved, like certain folks that occupy 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
I was going to try my best to have no lawyers involved with my day at all.
Well, that's usually a good thing. But here's the thing. So in legal terms, we have something called stare decisis, and that is basically settled history. The cases are set in stone. Second Amendment has been affirmed time and time and time again. Most recently, I think it was 2009 by the courts, stating that it is a personal right and freedom that we have to own and bear firearms. Just like the courts have now basically done the job of a Congress who was either impotent or just tried to push it off to the states. Because I was going to say, can you tell me in the Constitution where it specifically states that there is a God-given right to a homosexual marriage?
I would guess that it's not necessarily in the Constitution, but it's in the Bill of Rights, where it says that your life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and if the homosexual marriage is what makes you happy, I guess that's...
But here we go. Herein lies the rub. Because the government was never in the marriage business until we had an income tax, correct?
Well, don't even get me started on income tax.
But exactly. But this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Well, so we have a court or a judiciary that is basically ignoring the will of the people across the land in the states that have said we don't want this, and has instituted their own law. They've litigated from the bench, and they've come up with a law that basically took everything out of the hands of the folks who wanted to have gay marriage and created a law across the land. I see that as being part and parcel, synonymous with the majority of states that issue concealed carry permits and having to follow their same judgment. There's no difference.
Now I don't think that's going to hold. I mean, I follow what you're saying, but I don't really think that we're operating underneath this system that actually follows its own rules, the rules that it sets for everybody else. It doesn't follow them. It's its own self. So if you take a look at the recent Supreme Court decision regarding the homosexual marriage, it was pretty much split communists versus non-communists, really in my book. The non-Bolsheviks versus the overlords.
Right.
In other words. And I think when it comes down to firearms, the Bolsheviks will not follow their same path. The same path that they did with homosexual marriage, because their plan isn't to make the United States a place where the laws are enforced and followed and equally applied to everybody. It's rather the decisions they're making is to break up the fabric of the United States. They're trying to tear apart the morals of the United States through legislation. And I don't think that...
This may be the case. However, they have, as a court, they have recently decided, I mean, within the last 6 years, that it is the right of the people to own firearms. And that right shall not be infringed. And like I said, I only had a public school education, but I know that infringed means...
I understand. Now, if we're going to take a look at what they would consider to be a firearm, we could take a look at what happened in Australia following their Port Arthur incident. There was a large outcry, knee-jerk reaction, you could call it, following that, where they instituted some fairly draconian gun laws, and there was a massive buyback with air quotes around it, and which really was a confiscation. There was no fair compensation for it, I mean, not only for the items, but for the loss of their ability to use firearms. But their current definition of firearms that is available for the people to own are single shot shotguns, bolt action rifles, nothing of anything that's more than a sporting use. There's no semi-automatic rifles unless you have a very special license and you live out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Handguns are almost a thing of the past there.
Yeah, but like I said, let's keep it on this side of the Pacific, because
well, what I'm saying is this is how they would look at the definition of a firearm that's acceptable in the future.
And I think that when it comes down to the actual justices, I think that the divide is very wide when it comes to the 5-4 decisions that we've had. It's funny because every time I hear CNN talk about the Supreme Court and its makeup, they always talk about the 4 conservative justices, then you have the 3 liberal justices, and then you have John Roberts and you have Anthony Kennedy. So I don't know how you can say that there's only three liberal justices, because I think Anthony Kennedy goes with the liberal justices on almost everything. And then, like I said, I think John Roberts, I think he's disappointed a lot of people who believed he had some I would say, historical precedents in some of his judgments that made him purport to be a conservative-minded individual. And I think that when it comes to actual cases that have made it to the Supreme Court regarding firearms, I think he's voted reliably in favor of the individual right and affirming that right for individuals to own firearms and to be able to defend themselves. But I think that the larger issue is that the court very rarely reverses itself so quickly. You would think it took a long time from Plessy versus Ferguson to the Brown versus Board of Education decisions, where separate but equal was okay, to where separate but equal was not okay. We're talking decades. So, I think that there's an avenue to go forward with this, and what that does is that allows people in states like Massachusetts, New York, Connecticut, California, in some jurisdictions, that gives the individual gun owner a chance to defend themselves and have the reciprocity of those other states that do issue and maintain concealed carry permits for their citizens.
Well, I think, and I mean, keep in mind that this is all 100% complete speculation on my part, but the way that the judges are making political decisions from their bench, I mean, from their seat at the bench, I really don't see them keeping up the same track record in regarding their decisions in regards to liberties and rights that they would to firearms, just because the mere act of owning a firearm is your last best way to say, no, I don't comply.
Right. But
and
here's the thing.
Really don't think they want that. And really, I think I don't think they care about what's right or wrong, Nick. I'm sure that
they don't. I'm sure that there is
has been said.
As the court was decided upon way back in the 1700s, it was supposed to be the weakest branch of our three systems of government. You have your legislative, you have your executive, and you have your judicial. The judicial was supposed to be the weakest of the three, because all it was supposed to be was a constitutional check on whether or not the legislation and the executive were actually acting in accordance with the Constitution. That has changed. And I think that we've talked about the death of the Fourth Amendment, searches and seizures. That should spell doom in a lot of people's lives.
A lot of things should have spelled doom. I mean, if we're going to look at like the death of rights, the fact that if you live within 100 miles of the border, you live in what's considered a constitution-free zone. I mean, that's like 2/3 of the country.
Well,
you really, in the end, you have no rights, because it can all be taken away with the simple words of terrorism.
Oh, not only that. It's interesting that we have elected officials who it's their job to vet these candidates for judgeships, for justices on courts, any cabinet appointee. And how is it that appointee after appointee gets nominated and makes it through a confirmation hearing only to come out and see, beforehand, during, and afterwards, that the person's a schmuck from the word go. Eric Holder, our favorite departed attorney general, made it clear that it was his job to change the gun culture in America and to make it uncool as what was done with smoking. And
well, see, this is exactly what I'm getting at here. I almost feel like you're making my point for me. And Eric Holder has been mentioned for a spot on the Supreme Court, which, I think there's a snowball's chance in hell that he gets it. But I mean, the fact that he's been mentioned, and the powers that put people into the Supreme Court, the powers that make the decision of putting people in the Supreme Court, have already gone with this guy and this mindset that this guy has. I don't believe that there's going to be any decision made that reaffirms your rights.
Well,
that makes life what you and I were taught in school that it should be like.
Right, and granted, we are 30 and 35 years removed from school, so what we were taught. Yeah, you would go to jail for teaching kids what we were taught. But when you look at it on the outside, you've got people who are appointed for life in terms of Supreme Court justices, and we've had some pretty senile folks on the court over time. And the nearest one to senility is probably Bader Ginsburg, that wonderful Irish name. She
voted with the gay rights.
Oh, of course she did. Of course she did. So I think she's from Ireland by way of Tel Aviv. I'm not sure, but when you think about it, she herself does not want to step down, and since the court is supposed to be apolitical, yet she votes with every liberal cause that comes before her on the bench, it would almost make sense that the day before, she has a stroke or something, what's to say that she doesn't decide to retire and allow President Obama to further stack the court, even though he's just really shoring up one seat. He maintains his influence on that court that he's already planted 2 justices on, and I think we're in a bad position in terms of court cases going forward. The court is now stacked, and I think that in a lot of cases with these 5-4 rulings, it's a smaller snapshot of what the United States is as a whole. We are a divided nation.
The future doesn't bear any kind of silver lining, really, because the next president, which looks to be another reincarnation of the Bush-Clinton dynasty, will have probably 2 people to put onto the Supreme Court.
Well, and like I said, I think that during the Bush term, you had the young lady from Arizona, Sandra Day O'Connor, who decided to hang up her spurs and allowed President Bush to make a nomination. And I think that actually eventually became the Supreme Court Chief Justice, and that was John Roberts, because he had also put in Samuel Alito, and there was another one that he had nominated, but actually
Stephen Breyer. I believe it was Stephen Breyer.
No, Stephen Breyer is a seated member of the Supreme Court.
Was he not nominated by the same?
No. No, Anthony Kennedy was supposed to be a conservative that was nominated by George Bush, who ended up being anything but. So I think that honestly what you're looking at is this is a concerted effort across our nation to stack the deck when it comes to the law of the land. And
it's the usurpation of your rights by legislation, and it's not going to get any better. And there's really, like the song says, buy a gun, riot in the streets and all that. That may work, but people aren't going to riot in the streets because people will do everything they can to keep paying their income tax. And really, when it comes down to it, the loss of power that comes from the lack of money and the lack of compliance is a far greater threat than a bunch of people with guns. Not to discount the fact that, 10,000 guys with 30 caliber rifles is a pretty stout force.
Yeah,
they can get a lot accomplished. But if you got 30 million people that are regularly not paying taxes, and considering that, our workforce is now, I think it's something less than 92 million people are eligible for the workforce.
Right, but
Is what the
Michael,
numbers are.
we already have 30 million people that are here that are not paying taxes.
Well, what I'm saying is
are dislocated and
are
disenfranchised neighbors
dreamers
from the South. Yes,
are dreamers. Well,
exactly.
yeah, but that's really small potatoes in the end, because if you look at the corporations that pay absolutely zero taxes.
But
And
corporations are people.
as you look at it, you can take a whole bunch of dreamers that come up from Mexico, and it's like kind of like pissing in the wind against what GM does not pay in taxes.
Right, but who's it easier to go after? Are you going to go after GM as a government, or are you going to go after John Q. Public, who has a healthy fear of not paying his taxes?
Well, see, that's the question now. That's exactly where the 10,000 guys with 30 caliber rifles shows up.
Yeah, but those 10,000 guys, they're, like I said, if we're talking about the fifth largest peacetime army, those guys are only proficient shots between October and January, anyways.
Yeah, well, in the wonderful weather. Now, let's talk about some people who are good shots. Let's go to Chicago. This was a high score weekend for July in Chicago. We've got numbers that are ranging. I've seen 84 shot. The prevailing number seems to be about 55 shot and 9 killed over the weekend in Chicago. Another tragedy that is really not an issue that's being addressed for where it comes from. The cry once again is for gun control. Massive cries for gun control. Where is this? If we just had stronger laws, this wouldn't happen. We've seen that in Chicago, they have some of the strictest gun laws in the states in the entire United States. Is that correct?
That is correct. His Honor Rahm Emanuel, another fine Irish name. He's made it part of his platform, along with go ahead and knocking out some of the schools inside of Chicago. But here you go, Black Lives Matter, but only when they're not being taken by other black folks.
I think that's really the key, and that's why I personally believe the Charleston incident, it had failed to get as much traction for the manufactured crisis industry. It was followed quickly on the heels of another fabulous weekend in Chicago, Detroit, and Philadelphia, where those numbers were tripled in that weekend. But those were really black on black crime, and that did not elicit the appropriate response. It didn't push the race war, and it didn't really further the gun control agenda, because that story's been sung 1,000 times.
Well, look at it on the opposite end of the spectrum. We've all heard about the young lady in San Francisco that was walking by Pier 14, shot by a recidivist illegal alien. He's been deported back and forth 5 times. Shot her. She's dead. An American citizen killed by an illegal immigrant from Mexico, and where's the outcry? Where's the white lives matter?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about the illegal immigrant and that's San Francisco, and that's what's considered a sanctuary city. And this guy has 6 previous convictions, 6 previous felony convictions, and there was a request from the INS to have him transferred back, but since he was in San Francisco, a sanctuary city, the city declined to comply with that request. Now, God forbid that the INS, Border Patrol, or somebody actually takes an interest in their job and actually looks to take somebody out of the United States and take them away from harming the public. But the one time they do, they're stifled by the state.
Well, not even by the state. They would be stifled by the state. However, this is purely San Francisco. And I tell you, you have to look no further than who would be the next nomination for a Democratic Attorney General, and that would be Kamala Harris. She's the former city and county district attorney for San Francisco, and she has previously declined to prosecute the death penalty for individuals who were convicted of killing police officers in the city. There was a vote of no confidence a few years back from the police union and the county sheriffs in San Francisco regarding Miss Harris. However, she is the socialist. She is down that line where laws only matter if you're of a certain type of person who, you pay your taxes and you go to work, laws matter for you. However, if this one individual who was known to not only the city and county of San Francisco, because they are one and the same, but to the INS, to the Border Patrol, to Customs, and to the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement officers who petitioned the city and county to hold him so that he could be deported. They let him back out on the street. It was a willful disregard and a willful non-following of established federal law. And there are those of you who are Federalists and those of you who are anti-Federalists. I don't tend to jump into that argument too often, except for the fact that this was a known felon, and he was let out, which is an act of commission, which means that there is someone who is entirely culpable for this guy being out on the street, and he killed a citizen. He killed an American when he himself is not. I would like to see this go the other way, where an American citizen was illegally in another country and had, for whatever reason, decided to shoot and kill a citizen of that country. Do you think that for 1 second that individual would be let go to be able to meld back into society?
I don't understand why this is being done, Nick. I mean, other than we can look at it and say that there's either gross negligence or there's gross incompetence, but really in the end, I think it's just a plan to destroy us. I really, my own personal opinion, and this might not be popular, I think there's a plan to destroy the United States through a balkanization, so to speak. I think there's a plan to break the United States up into sub-regions, and the best way to do that is to continue down the path we're on. We're going to destroy the culture. We're going to destroy the morality. We're going to destroy the currency. We're going to destroy the employment in this nation. We're going to destroy the housing market. We're going to create divide, and at the same time that we're going to create divide and destroy all these things, we're going to destroy the education and make everybody sick.
Well, see, here's the thing that I have. I have a big problem with the morality issue of it, because when most folks in our country look for their morals, they look towards some type of religious organization to give them that guidance. Having been a lapsed and no longer Catholic, I can say that the Catholic Church does everything in its power to thumb its nose at city and state governments that want to go ahead and push these illegal aliens out of their cities. There's been plenty of them in Los Angeles, Phoenix, Tucson, all across the South. Catholic churches are sanctuaries for illegal immigrants. Now, to me, that's a problem, because our Constitution says that governments are instituted among men to govern for those. We make no law respecting the establishment of a religion nor the prohibition thereof. However, we don't sit there and get to pick and choose which laws our religious institutions say that they can follow or not follow. And that brings up Father Flager out of Chicago. Is a Catholic priest who is calling for more gun control because he wants to get gun shops out of certain neighborhoods. So, yeah, I hope that guy chokes on his Eucharist one of these days, because what he's doing is not his job. His job is to minister to his parish, to the greater archdiocese, and that has nothing to do with harboring illegal aliens. So,
well, I think you'll see that through this, and I mean it sort of strays from the topic of firearms, but it also sort of fits right in. I mean, the church has kind of lost its way. The church is no longer a congregation of people. The church is a way to disseminate an idea, and it doesn't necessarily work for the best interests of the people. I mean, if you consider that, almost every church has a very expensive gold cup, and in that same parish, I'm guessing, where the gold cup is being drank out of, the blood of Christ is taken on Sunday, I'm sure there are poor people that cup could be, commuted into some sort of funds or something that would assist the others. Well, so I mean, I really, my personal feelings is the religion is there so the poor do not rise up and murder the rich.
Well,
it's that sort of system of control. I stole that quote from somebody, but it's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's right on the money.
I think that for those who truly and honestly accept that as part of their life, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If a person wants to have that in their life, that's none of my business to say that, hey, you are wrong.
I've got no problem with the community of fellowship of man, the grouping of people who want to get together and be like-minded. I don't care if you do that for the invisible man in the sky or you do that over a love of firearms. That's your right. Where I get have my main issue is the power behind the political aspect of the church, the big C,
Right, exactly.
the incorporated, so to speak.
Well, and here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you've got a guy like Father Flager who has made it his part of his platform as a minister of a flock to take on gun control, what's he really saying about, people in his congregation that have been abused by priests? That is to me is something that the guns are secondary to him. Or shouldn't even be mentioned, really, because he's got enough problems in his own backyard.
He's got other issues to deal with. Exactly. But this is an issue that's a hot button issue. It's an issue that if you speak out on it, you will get some sort of press. And let's go back to this. Let's just go back to this illegal alien guy who shot this lady on the boardwalk. When I first saw this story, it came out that he said he was sorry and he didn't know. He just found the gun and he picked it up and it went off 6 times. Now that kind of makes you think, well, what firearm do you pick up and it goes off 6 times with 6 hits? This is not only
why isn't our military in possession of such a weapon?
Exactly. We should get a whole bunch of those to the NYPD or something.
Oh yeah, because they need the help at range as much as they can get.
Fire 6 shots and get 6 hits. Geez, they haven't done that probably since 1851 or something like that.
They get 6 shots and 6 hits, but it ain't what they're aiming at.
Yes, the bullets do impact somewhere. Yeah. You're 100% correct. But there's the issue where our enemy, the media, is not giving you the whole story behind the illegal alien and the outcry, other than to kind of push the race war issue. They're not getting into the actual meat and potatoes of why is this guy here. But then they also are very, very inflammatory when it regards the firearm that is used in this. It's just picked up as dangerous, and these just go right off. And you probably got one in your closet that's just itching to get you while you sleep.
Get into a gun-free zone. But Michael, I've done plenty of research on this, having previously been incarcerated in the People's Republic of San Francisco against my will for 4 years, and by incarcerated meaning living within the greater Bay Area. Here's the thing: the state of California is broker than broke. They are more broke than Greece. But when it comes to it, every illegal alien understands that they can survive. They can get all the health care they need. They can get access to EBT cards. They can access WIC. They can get access to every social service they need, because brown is the new black. And if you are a black American who has blindly followed certain politicians because they had a D after their name since Reconstruction, if I was in your position, I would feel like I just got put out with the bathwater, because you are no longer the portion of the population of the United States that those folks are looking to coddle and tell you that you've been mistreated, you've been misappropriated, you've been hoodwinked and bamboozled. You didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on you. No, those days are over, my friend. And the new dynamic, which is being pushed, is that brown is what is going to get stuff done. And when I mean get stuff done, not just they are actually going to work and work jobs that maybe not everybody wants.
No, they will be pushing the agenda. They will be the vehicle that the agenda gets pushed along.
Exactly.
They will be pushing people into office.
Take a look.
That
no further than our own media history when it comes to television programming. I don't know if you remember a show in the early '90s called Will and Grace.
I kind of remember that show. Yeah,
so that was one of the first shows that had a gay character as one of the main characters of the plot. And here we are 20 years later. You look today, and you have different shows that have blended or mixed families of dubious national origin or legal status, as it were. And There
And then you also got issues with who's making the programming for the children.
Oh, well, like I said, we've got other avenues to where we can go in to get into that. But my point of the matter is this. There's more than one felon that was involved this weekend who was an illegal alien, which by definition is a felony anyways. Entering the country illegally is a felony. It is a federal offense. But yet they are out on our streets. They are killing American citizens with impunity. And I say impunity because you've got to be able to walk on water if you've got 6 felonies and are not in jail for the rest of your life.
Maybe he identifies as an innocent American.
I think what he identified is that San Francisco is not willing to do what they need to do in terms of following certain laws because it doesn't meet the agenda of the county supervisors. The county supervisors in San Francisco run the entire city and county. The mayor, he's there. He has some policies, but he's really a social figurehead. The city and county supervisors which have been there mostly since the 70s with a couple new additions. They are the ones that run the town, and it's not part of their agenda to make that area any safer for white bread America or for even Asian America. You talk about a population that is maligned. Look at Asian Americans. We've rounded them up. We've taken them to concentration camps within the United States. We've done social asset forfeiture on all of their property, all of their money, taken them away. George Takei, Mr. Sulu from Star Trek, he and his family were victims of this. However, that whole dynamic changes when we are gonna promote one race over the other. We're going to let them get away with murder because that's exactly what has happened. I don't think I'm being facetious. I think an individual has
you're being 100% accurate. I mean, there are crimes that have been enabled by the lack of action on the state's part.
Exactly. And I think that taking it into a larger context of the upcoming presidential debates, you've got some people who are actually, for good or bad, actually standing up and saying some things with some salty language and actually pointing fingers at nationalities. And deservedly or not, that's starting to hit.
I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing that he's pointing at nationalities, but he is breaching an area that is almost taboo. I mean, we've got issues in this nation that are trying to be blamed on inanimate objects, and the facts just don't point to the inanimate objects causing the crime. It's social demographics which are causing, and these social demographics have their own subset of causes that bring them into play. But these aren't being addressed. We have to blame the inanimate object, and that's become a problem. Now, something that I've found to be interesting is Bernie Sanders, who's running for president. He's running on the Democratic ticket, and he's a senator from Vermont.
He's
an avowed. He's running as a Democrat, I believe.
Oh, okay. Because right now, as he sits in Congress, he is an independent. He is a socialist by his own words. But yes,
an avowed socialist in his own words, and he's drawing pretty big crowds. By far the largest crowds of anybody on the Democratic trail at this point.
So this kind of steps in and says that we may not have a coronation of Hillary Clinton as a nominee, because I actually happened to see a recent poll today that said Joe Biden, our vice president, is polling it higher than Bernie Sanders at 16%.
This is where we're kind of. I don't believe the polls, because polls are really easy. I mean, like, we've just recently seen the thing that says 1/3 of Americans own a firearm, according to a telephone poll. If somebody calls you on the phone and says, "Nick, do you own a firearm?" What are you saying? No, I have no idea. Who the fuck are you? Get off my phone.
Absolutely not, Your Honor.
Right. So, I mean, that's I don't trust those kind of polls. So, to me, the people who actually get up off their ass and show up are the real numbers. And much like Ron Paul, Bernie Sanders is getting some great big numbers showing up at his events. He's getting 7,000, 8,000, 12,000 people, standing room only. They have to open up other wings, unused areas of these auditoriums and things. And at the same time, you've got Hillary Clinton buying a crowd of 150 people an actual rent a crowd,
Right.
and then she gets all the coverage, and Bernie Sanders gets like a page 3 mention, which I'm not a Bernie Sanders fan by any means, because Bernie Sanders is not a friend to gun owners in the United States.
Certainly not. And when you take a look at it this way, you also see that this is part of Hillary Clinton's campaign strategy, because as soon as she opens her mouth.
Wait up, let me finish this. Where I'm going with this is there's a large groundswell, and I really see it reminiscent of the grassroots effort that kind of like kicked Ron Paul's campaign. And I mean, early in the campaign, Ron Paul got a lot of his lack of attention from the media was giving him attention. I mean, he wasn't getting on CNN, and when he was getting on CNN, he was being maligned and things. Yet he was drawing 15,000 people to an auditorium for an hour-long speech. So I think the Bernie Sanders crew is going to follow this, and maybe they'll have the same sort of burnout on the two-party system.
Yeah, I don't see that changing anytime soon. And honestly, there's a reason why. I think that most people in America tend to hedge their bets. We've seen it from time to time. You're going to take a bite of a shit sandwich. You're just going to have to take a bite of the juicier side. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think they're all going to end up seeing that. And I think that is pretty much what's going to lead to the balkanizations of the United States. I truly think that the United States is going to break up into maybe 4 or 5 different regions. I
don't know about that, but
I don't see it. I think that there's enough discord in this country, and there's enough people becoming aware of they don't like the way things are going, whether it has something to do with their firearms rights being usurped and taken and adjusted and abridged and modified, and please just make a compromise here and there, or the fact that the morality that they were growing up on has just been legislated away. Whether or not it affects them is a completely different subject or not, but this is what the foundations of their life, so to speak. These tenets of life, and I really think that this is going to have a serious corrosive effect on the country. And I believe that people are not going to want to be associated with the East Coast. People are not going to want to be associated with the South. People are not going to be wanting associated with California or the Pacific Northwest. I really who wants to be in Detroit's club?
Well, Michael, I think I need to sponsor a constitutional amendment that gerrymanders the remainder of the United States along rap battle lines. You can be East Coast, West Coast, South Coast, or you can be Detroit Rock City, but you got to pick your poison, man.
Well, I think the poison's already in the air for us, buddy.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, I just kind of threw that out there. I think when you take a look at it, we haven't really heard any strong stances from any of the candidates on any of the hot button issues. I think we're very very new in terms of this candidacy. So it looks like we got a caller, Michael. You want to take him or what?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take this call.
All right, caller, you're on live.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Hey, Chris from Canada.
Chris from Canada.
Good evening, Chris from Canada. Welcome to PrimerTime. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. Doing well. All this talk about voting somebody in or talking about one candidate over another, I feel, in my opinion, that's just like a total waste of time.
Absolutely, the two-party system is plain for anybody to see who opens their eyes. We're referring to the candidates and the campaign trail in what 95% of the country looks at. We're both of us are completely aware of the fact that whether or not you vote, it doesn't matter, because Diebold counts the votes. We're completely aware of this.
Well, no, it doesn't even have to be that, because most people aren't aware. I don't want to just bring up my country for an example, but I will for the sake of this conversation. My country has several parties in the race. So you got the liberals or the conservatives, but you have an alternative, which is the NDP, and they're just the distraction force. So now people are looking and say, well, we're going to vote NDP in because the liberals and the conservatives haven't done anything well.
So who counts your votes?
So
who counts your votes?
Well, like
The
I said, it
question
doesn't
is
matter.
who counts your votes? Absolutely, it matters because
even if
somebody has to certify your election, and the people have to believe that election was certified. They have to swallow the medicine with a tiny bit of sugar. So who provides the sugar? Is it Diebold? Because if Diebold counts your votes, Diebold selects your candidates and selects your winners. And
they do it anyways. That's my point.
For us.
See, it doesn't matter. Before there was Diebold, they were doing the same thing. This has been going on for like 100 years now.
Well, and that's the thing. And
they're already selected. It doesn't matter. You can have an electronic voting system, and you're still going to get the people that they appoint.
Right. And hey, we thank
whether
you for
it's
your
one
call.
party or another. They're all in the same party.
Like I said,
just like in the States,
you've got call, and that's an opinion that a lot of people have, and our neighbors up north, like I said, you do have the opportunity to have more than one party, which is something that we're struggling to formulate here in the United States. You could almost say that you have both extreme ends of the spectrum. You've got the ultra right and the ultra left, and then you've got those who kind of gravitate towards the middle. But at least in our system, when it comes to the primaries, which is kind of like the battle royale for party supremacy, they have to go as far to that end of the rope in order to generate the most voters. But when it comes time for that general election, we see them time after time come back to try and find middle ground because they're going to have to go ahead and take some of those voters from the other side. So thanks again for giving us a call. Appreciate it. Michael, I think that's it. That brings up a good point. We don't necessarily get a good mix of information coming out of our neighbors in the Great White North, as Bob and Doug would say. But when it comes to the politicians, they say something out of one side of their face, but it doesn't matter because
it's the same in whatever country they're in. It's a plan to get other people to do your work.
Right, there you go.
And it really, in the end, it's the basis of everything. It's the usury system, right? It's the I'll loan you this and make double the money, and I won't have to do the work. I'll end up owning slavery, owning slaves. Usury flows right into the slave system. Right there.
You're gonna have to watch out because you talk about owning slaves, and all of a sudden you're gonna get Black Lives Matter spray painted all over your monument in Washington D.C.
I have no Confederate flags.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I'm just it kills me. I'm sitting here looking at candidates because this is the only time where they actually get a chance to get out there and say something off the cuff. And did you happen to see Hillary Clinton's support staff roping off a group of reporters?
Yeah, I did. It was really kind of sad. And that really kind of was something you almost had to hunt for. I mean, it was widely disseminated with the right-wing media, but it wasn't getting into the Today Show kind of thing. And, you almost have to question the journalists' integrity that did not cover this. I mean, these were their comrades that were basically being leashed.
They were being herded, I believe is the term. And not only were they being herded, they did not once attempt to walk around the ropes that were containing them. So, I look at this and I say, now, realistically, any one of those cameras that had a logo on it is part and parcel bought in on that Hillary ticket. If there was a CNN logo on a microphone flag, if there was a Fox News, if there was a Al Jazeera, it doesn't matter. if that reporter lacked the intestinal fortitude, or as what we would refer to as the balls, to get up and walk out and hit that lady with some hard questions like, "Oh, hey, by the way, how are you out of jail right now for being in a position that was voted by you as a sitting member of Congress for a pay raise as a Secretary of State, and then you ascend to that position in the next term? How are you not in prison?" I hear crickets chirping.
Yeah, exactly. Crickets. Yeah. Shout out to Hal Anthony. Crickets. Absolutely. The questions that were asked her at this leashed herding event. What kind of ice cream do you like?
Yeah.
That's what she answered.
I believe that's what we would call a softball question.
Right.
Everything that, like I said, everything. Hillary is old news. Hillary's been tried and true. You catch her at different parts of her last 20 years. You'll hear her speaking in a different accent, depending upon where she's at in the country. I think that, honestly, the average intelligent American, which probably is a hell of a lot fewer than there used to be, they can see right through that. But also, on the flip side, they can see right through the Donald Trumps. They can see right through the Mitt Romneys. They can see right through the other side's, their best effort. But the problem is that I don't yet see an individual who's willing to stand up and say, "This is what I affirm. This is my platform as an individual. This is what I will push for, and you can either take it or leave it." Bill Clinton did it, and America loved him for it. Bill Clinton, to paraphrase George Carlin, said, "I'm a criminal, and how do you like that?" People voted him a second term.
Well, he also had the most important weapon at his disposal. He had the media backing him.
Yeah.
We
got to hit our 4 rules of firearm safety.
All right, let's do that real quick. All right, rule number 1: every firearm is loaded until you physically and visually inspect and ensure that it is not loaded. Rule number 2 is be aware of the muzzle points at all times. Rule number 3: know what your target is and know what is beyond your target. And the most important rule is the 4th rule: please keep your booger hook off the bang switch until you're ready to discharge the weapon.
There we go. We got time for one caller. Caller 1.
All right, let's get him back on. Bring him back on.
Caller, you there?
Yes, I'm here. This is Kathy Ornstein.
All right, Kathy, where are you calling?
Kathy.
From Los Angeles. Who is this?
This is Nick. How are you doing?
This is PrimerTime.
Oh, I thought this was for the Global Skywatch radio program with Dane and Russ Tanner.
About 10 minutes. That's going to be in about 10 minutes, Kathy.
What?
About 10 minutes. We appreciate you giving us a call. All right. So, yeah, like I said, I'm pretty much disappointed in the field of folks that are out there. I don't see anybody that's willing really to stand up and take firearms owners on their side and show a history or a pattern of judgments that support getting my vote, and certainly showing America, hey, this is what we affirm to. And I think that's something that's been missing for quite a while.
And I think for that exact reason is why I think the nation is going to break up and split up into several parts. That's really why.
Yeah,
I don't think that there's.
I would go that far yet.
Nick, I don't see why not. I really don't see why not. I mean, look at the last several elections. How long has the?
I would give you one word or one phrase: the full faith and violence of the United States military. That is what is going on.
You know what? I fully understand and fear the full faith and violence of the United States military, but at some point, somebody's got to pay for the full faith and violence of the United States military. Those dudes got to get a check. And you know what? You can't pay them in wheelbarrows full of Weimar Deutschmarks. That just doesn't work.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing. You don't have to worry about Weimar Deutschmarks because you've got American dollars, which are going to be probably devalued in the near future at a certain rate when we don't even see it from our trading partners like China. Anybody that's really been paying attention to that should be very, very concerned. not only is China an arms manufacturer and exporter all across the world, and especially going into Africa, where Barack Obama had at one point decided that we were going to probably go in large numbers. And, hey, whatever happened to that Ebola thing, huh?
Well, with the Ebola thing, we have to look at what kind of contracts were made with Big Pharma, what kind of fear porn was put out there, how many people got a little dose of, we have to do what the man says because the boogie germs will get us. I think every one of these little things that goes on and is wildly promoted and grabs all the attention is really just a load of bullshit to keep your eyeballs off the big thing, which is the money's going to turn to dog shit.
Yeah. The
money's going to turn to dog shit, and everything, and the basis of everybody's life in this country is going to be upside down.
Well, and in that case, start stocking up on your surplus ammo. And speaking of surplus ammo,
I would say so.
I got a chance to go out and shoot some Weichkern German manufactured 308 ammo this weekend.
How'd you like that stuff?
What
did it smell like when you fired it?
Same kind of typical spent gunpowder smell, but it was.
Would you call it a little bit more acidic, more acritic, I guess? I found that ammunition that comes from like the eastern part of Europe, when I fire it, that it seems to have more of I'm gonna have to speak French and say it's a cat piss smell.
I didn't quite notice that. Maybe because, after having my nose broken a couple times, sense of smell ain't all there what it was used to be. So, but it fired 100% reliably. Didn't notice any kind of really excessive buildup of carbon. Then again, I was firing it from an HK, and that HK does have a self-cleaning gas system.
No primers bulging or anything like that?
Actually, not that the primer was bulging or anything like that. On my 300 Blackout, we did fire some rounds, and the 125 grain ballistic tip ammo, that I did notice one of the cases did have the primer ejected out of it. So that was kind of concerning to me.
Well, that sounds like it's a overpressured round.
Well, here's the thing: I had 2 failures to extract on that out of a 5-round load. So that was kind of, like I said, I with the 300 Blackout, there's a little bit of some science still going on to determine what the appropriate amount of powder should be used in order to make sure that the bolt fully cycles and be able to extract and reload the next round. Previously, I've been firing 147 grain bullets, and that probably had a few more grains of powder, and I don't know if that's just the critical point where that threshold hadn't been crossed yet. So, I'm going to have to go out and do the right thing and shoot some more to figure it out.
Well, that's really what it's all about, is getting out and finding out exactly what load your rifle likes, what you're comfortable firing, and what works well for you. I really haven't had a chance to get out and play a whole lot. I was able to grab a seriously good deal. I picked up a New England Firearms Topper in 12 gauge. It's Topper Model 88. It's a single-shot break-open shotgun. I got what I would consider to be a really hot deal on it. I picked up the shotgun and 85 rounds of varying types of 12 gauge ammunition, varying sizes as well, some 3-inch and then some 2 3/4 inch stuff for $50.
Well, that's not a bad deal.
That's pretty interesting, and I'm considering throwing in maybe about $40 and picking up some gauge-mate sub-caliber chamber inserts, which would give me the ability to fire, let's say, 9mm or 357 38 or 45 long Colt, or even other shotgun shells through it. So I mean that's kind of a handy little survival rifle type deal, and quite functional. Quite functional, and they're super simple and really strong.
Well, that's the other side of the coin, is that I was able to fire the Mossberg MVP. It's a stout scout rifle with an 18-inch barrel and 308. And I'll tell you what, if we had more time, I'd talk a lot more about it. But Michael, it's good to talk.
Well, we're going to hit that next week. Nick, thanks a lot for being here. Everybody, UCY.TV, your home for all kinds of information. Dane Wigington and Geoengineering Watch up next. Stick around, guys. Thanks a lot for listening. We'll see you next week.